everyone. Welcome back to Coach Quip. I'm Coach Robyn.
I'm Coach Chris.
And today we are talking about something that happens every single day. Really kind of wherever you are, but definitely in Chicago, which is wind. How the heck can we run in the wind and really maximize the effects? Because it is not going anywhere.
Yeah, if you've ever had a run into the wind and then turned around and ran back with the wind at your back, you know there's a very real difference between the way that it feels. And that can be at a track workout where you're going to have that every single lap, or just on one of your regular or long runs. This is something that is a life skill, I think, for runners, at least mentally, to be able to come to terms with the fact that some of your runs will have wind on them if you are ever running outside, and that you can use it to your advantage.
I think a lot of times people keep this variable as just like the wild card. Like, well, I ran north and it was hard, so then I did, and I'm like, no, we can use this, to your point, we can use this as long as we know what we're dealing with and really truly plan our training around it to maximize it, because it is kind of a cool feature. And again, not going anywhere, so we might as well get on board.
Yeah. So we have 8 tips for you in this episode of how you can manage running in the wind and use it to your advantage. Starting off with number 1, which is to maintain a relaxed posture. So we know that when you tense up when you run, everything feels harder. So there's just, in any of your workouts that feel tough, if you relax more, it will be easier. So just same thing in the wind. Try to stay loose and relaxed and not tense up when you're running into the wind.
I will see people running into the wind and they have what I call their oh shit faces, where they're just like, you know, their faces are gnarled and then their necks are tense and then their shoulders are creeping up on their earlobes, and to your point, their arms are your hands are fisted and their arms are really high. I promise you, running like that you're making it even harder on yourself, because you are going to feel that rigidity all the way through the rest of your body, down to your toes. Being able to, if you go into the wind, keep a relaxed face. I always think about having your face jowls just flapping in the wind. Like, you want your face that loose, so that you can combat this thing that's really kind of pressing against you, instead of reacting to it. So I will call you out on that face if I see you.
Yes, you should. And that's funny. I have in the past, I've had a competition with my athletes to send me their ugliest race photo, because I want them so relaxed in their face that it looks like their skin is dripping off.
Yes.
You know, like I want the ugly photos. And a mental hack on this one to stay relaxed is, like, I think about, if I'm relaxed, the wind is just going to go around me.
Yeah. I love that.
Whereas if I'm tense, I'm going to smash right into it. So, you know, use your brain to have those little tricks.
All right. The second one is kind of in line with that, in that it's talking a little bit about form. So we do want to lean slightly into the wind. So it's going to reduce the wind resistance because you're able to kind of cut through it, right? Visually, I always like to think about being almost like a slice of cheese, right? And then if we're leaning forward, we're literally almost creating that slipstream. It's going to reduce the wind resistance and really make it easier to keep a consistent pace with yay for us, optimized run form, right? The proclivity for people, especially if they have the oh shit face going on, is they're going to start to go in that back seat and lean backward. And I promise you, moving forward is harder if you're leaning backward. Right? You're braking as you're trying to accelerate. Leaning gently forward into the wind is going to help you move forward. My asterisk on this, though, whenever possible, don't do it at the waist, right? Trying to do so more so at the ankles with that neutral pelvis is going to really create that wedge of cheese.
Yeah. I'm going to be a slice of pizza. That's it.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, that's maybe more appropriate.
Yeah,
for
wedge of cheese
anyway.
could sometimes be, so be that Chicago slice, not the deep dish square, not the party cut. Okay.
Is it called the Chicago slice?
No, well, a deep dish would be Chicago slice, but party cut is specifically Chicago. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Is it the squares?
Squares,
No, we don't want to be a square.
Yeah, don't be a square, but a slice of, a classic slice of pizza.
Yes. I did not see this episode going this direction, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, well, did you see the episode going in the correcting your run form?
Oh.
Because that's what's happening.
Yeah, it is true.
You know, you just said to lean slightly into the wind, which is a great way to correct form. When we're doing our treadmill analysis, that's one of the top things that we have to tell runners to correct, is that slight forward lean from the ankles. Another one that can help here is to shorten your stride. So Typically running, we don't want short strides, right? We want you to have your optimal stride where you're landing underneath your body. But for the wind, if you shorten your stride slightly, you can reduce the amount of time that your feet are exposed to the wind, which minimizes resistance. I mean, this is ever so slight, right? But it is helpful to increase your cadence and have that shorter stride to get you through a strong wind.
I like to think of this one too. You can use, because Chicago absolutely has gusts. And if you race downtown or really anywhere in the city, and you can have these big gusts and you know that you're coming around this corner and it's going to be gust city, you can shorten that stride there. And then as soon as the wind changes, you're like catapulted. And it really does help you kind of propel yourself into the non-wind area with even more efficiency.
That's a great point, because when we're running in the wind is not a constant 40-mile-an-hour blast at all times for the duration of your run. It really is sort of like breathing.
Yeah,
right?
It's
like sometimes you get a gust, sometimes it's strong in a particular area, but you turn a corner, like you said. So yeah, you can definitely use the forward lean and the shortened stride to your advantage in the spots that you need it, and then go right back to your regular run form when the wind isn't so gusty.
All right, that's top 3. Now we're up 4. We're moving on to gear. Wear wind-resistant clothing, right? Duh, right? Don't wear your baggy sweatpants. It's not a great idea. We're going to choose things that are tighter fitting, right? So I love a tight on the bottom for these types of days. And windproof layers that are going to help, especially if it's cold, kind of keep you a little bit warm, but aren't going to cause a ton of excessive drag. For me, I hate a bulky coat. There was a session that I did years ago with Nike, and I had this coat on, and I think I probably got the wrong size. And I was running, and it was also raining. And I was running, and I had a hood. Didn't think about tucking the hood. And I think I was coaching. I wasn't really thinking. It was a very, very windy lakefront run. And this hood became this parachute that just kept dragging me back. Talk about inefficient, right? So I'd try to coach, and I'd get wind in my hood, and I was just mad about it. And then it started raining. Then the hood filled up with water and wind, and it was like a weight. It was just terrible, right? Mm-hmm. Since then, I now know I can roll it up, tuck it in, right? Just reduce that drag. Did not make that mistake more than once, but wow, was I uncomfortable. And it was not a heavy jacket. It just trapped everything, and it was too big.
Yeah, that is definitely, the hood that's a good point about rolling the hood. That's a great pro tip. But even a jacket that's looser fitting can just be a sail sometimes.
Oh, I'm so angry.
Yeah.
So angry.
Well, number 5 is to plan your route. So if you have intensity within your workout, you can try to plan your route so that when you have those stretches where you have to hit pace, you have the wind at your back, or you're in a less windy area.
This, I cannot emphasize, this is the most important one.
Yeah.
If you're doing like an easy run, that's one thing. But if you're doing a super long run and there's a push in it, or if you're doing things like tempo, or you're doing a more sustained tempo and we need the back half of it to be stronger, you have to plan your route.
Yep.
Because if you don't, it acts as an amplifier, right? And I think this is very counterintuitive to people. Let's say you have a 30-minute tempo and you're going to be out and back on the lakefront path. If you do the first half into the wind, you're not as tired, you're not as fatigued yet, right? So it's an okay time to wear yourself down a little bit. Once we turn and we need to push, you do not, when you're at max levels of fatigue, you do not need to be adding on wind as an additional element. You're already running fast, right? Otherwise, it becomes a multiplier. So if the marathon pace is supposed to be your tempo, it's going to end up being more like a 10K effort. And that's not what we wrote. Right? That's not what's in the plan. So really, truly planning your route out. I know for long runs, I do this a lot for my athletes in the spring, because I do feel like spring training is just the most bombastic weather that we have, right? And so I will write them, let's say they have 18 miles and they have 6 miles at marathon pace. I tell them, put it in the middle, but put it in the middle so the majority of those miles have the wind at your back. So route it out however you want. We just need it somewhere in the middle where you have a little bit on the beginning, a little bit on the end is easy AF. But when you're doing your push, you need to work with the wind so that it's at your back for 4 to 6 of those miles.
Yeah, and let me put a little underscore on this. It is not cheating to have the wind at your back during the second half of this like tempo workout that we're describing as an example, because I know some of you runners out there are like, well, if it's a multiplier and I have to do, and I can run 10K pace, right? then why would I not just try to make it a little harder and use the wind as that extra strength or extra resistance to try to get faster by using that in that way? And that, that's not the workout that was written. And so when you are out there doing the prescribed workout that you have in your plan, adding on extra is extra. It's not necessarily better, it's just more. And your program is designed, at least the programs that we're talking about in terms of like Run Club or personal coaching, those are designed to stack the most benefits on each session. And if you have a session that goes super hard, like harder than it was supposed to be, you're going to negatively see those impacts in the rest of your training for the week or maybe in future sessions. So don't think that like yes, it can be a little extra bonus strength work or like a little extra effort, but you don't have to make it harder on yourself. Like use your tools, use your brain to make this easier by planning it out appropriately.
I promise, if you do a 60-minute tempo, 30 minutes into the wind, and 30 minutes with the wind at your back, it's still a 60-minute tempo because the first 30 minutes were still into the wind.
Right.
So those were harder than planned, and then maybe the back half were a little bit easier than planned. The average is still going to be the same.
Yeah. So next up is to focus on your effort, not your pace. We know that strong winds will slow you down, and that's just fact. Like depending on the wind, your pace will drop and you will feel like you're working as hard as if you were hitting those paces. So in these cases, and this is the reason why we plan a more strategic route if we needed to hit our numbers, but if you are just going out, you can go by effort instead of by pace to make sure that you are maintaining the sort of essence of what that workout is.
I'm going to flip this one even further. I'm going back to that 60-minute tempo effort. Let's say your 60-minute tempo is supposed to be a 7:30 effort, right? If you're running into the wind and it is an 8-minute, but it feels like a 7:30, okay, it's a 7:30. If you turn around and you're hitting low sevens, but it feels like a 7:30, it is a 7:30, right? So it's on the flip side when it's at your back, it is okay effort-wise if it feels completely effortless. Like Brian always talks about when it's at the back that it feels like a giant hand is just pushing you.
Yeah.
If you're rocking something that's 20 seconds, 30 seconds faster than what's written and your heart rate is in an appropriate spot, leave it. It works both ways, right, from an effort standpoint.
Yeah, of course that happens for him. He's like 8 feet tall, so...
Yeah, you're right.
He's got a lot of wind resistance there. But probably harder for him going into the wind.
It is, see? So average.
See? Average, exactly.
All right, next up, this is one that I think when we struggle with a tough element falls off, which is to stay hydrated. It's super easy to forget to drink when you're focused on running, especially into the wind, because you're just kind of fighting it, maybe thinking about your beautiful run form, how you're adjusting pace. So you forget to hydrate at kind of regular intervals. And honestly, even with it at your back, I think sometimes you get kind of pushed and jostled, or you're like really excited because you're going faster than it feels like. Stay on it. I notice I get very thirsty when it's windy because, I don't know, maybe I'm talking and I get very dry mouth, which is also why I love running with gum, favorite accessory. But, having that nutrition reminder on your phone or on your watch to remind you to even take small sips is really going to help.
Mm-hmm. And our final tip for running in the wind is to run with a group. So if it's possible, if you run with others, you can use that sort of draft effect where you tuck behind somebody and they cut the wind for you. And our triathletes can tell you about, and our cyclists can tell you about drafting. It significantly cuts the amount of effort that you have to put out in order to maintain your run form if somebody else is blocking that wind for you. The caveat here is that you need to be a good group member and take your turns pulling at the front.
Yeah.
But you can really cut through it, and I think it's kind of like a really fun workout.
It is. It's one of my favorite things we do with long runs when it's windy.
Yeah.
We'll put them in a line.
Yeah.
And we say everybody pulls for, it's either 60 seconds or a quarter mile, depending on how long the run is.
Yep.
And then they run. They just keep dropping back to the back.
So fun.
And it makes them take accountability of the pace that they're pulling, but then also really, truly have to kind of manage your run form because you're the one in front until you're not.
Yeah, and you can see and you can feel the difference. You can both see it in your pace, but you can feel the difference when you go from that like 3-2 up into that number 1 spot and you are then fighting the wind. That's a great way to really notice the impacts that wind has on your running and your running form.
This is one, too, that I will talk to my athletes about in our pre-race debriefs going into very windy races like Chicago Marathon. chances are you might run with people but you're probably going to have people around you that are running a similar pace that you don't know. And if you have a long stretch into the wind, just talk to them, right? Don't just sit on someone's hip, right? But you can be like, hey, I'm going to sit back here for a quarter mile. Is that cool? Okay, I'm going to pop up now for the next quarter, right? And take turns, even when you're racing, to be strategic, and be able to hold that pace and share. You are going to have crazy energy savings doing that and rotating through, but just communicate with those around you if you don't already know them.
All right, so there you have it. Those are 8 tips for successfully running in the wind. What did we miss? If you have a bonus tip, go ahead and leave it in the comments for us. Please feel free to send this to anyone that you know who lives in a windy area or is going to be racing a windy race so that they can get these benefits and tips too.
And if we see you out there making that face into the wind, we will say hello. Till next time.
Thanks for listening to Coach Quip. Original music performed by Ment. Follow us online on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Edge Athlete Lounge. Our podcast lives in the blog section of our website. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and you can check out the show notes for additional ways to contact us. Ready, set, onward we go.